All right. Good morning, everyone. Good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're so happy to have you with us. My name is Wyatt. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for Schwarzman Scholars, and it's my delight to welcome you to our webinar today called The Case for Curiosity. And we have a very special guest, my friend and colleague, Julia Zupko, who is our Director of Career Development at Schwarzman College, someone who you will work very closely with if you apply and become a Schwarzman Scholar. So we are very honored to have her with us here today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. Julia, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Wyatt. Again, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm excited to talk to you today about the topic of curiosity, because career development at Schwarzman College is about helping you pursue your professional goals and enabling you to think and approach that pursuit in new and different ways. And I think today's topic will help get you thinking about how to do that. So curiosity, the data is out there that this is important as a topic, as an attribute. And what I'd like to do is have you take a quick poll. Go ahead and answer the question about which of these phrases, if any, you can pick as many as you'd like, describe you. Give you about a minute to do that. It's great to see so many people on the call this morning. Okay. So curious people, some of the descriptors used are that they take responsibility, they onboard faster, they're adaptable, they consider many different perspectives, they make more of an effort to get to know others, and are committed to lifelong learning. And it's no surprise that these attributes of how we would describe curious people are the same attributes we often see in our Schwarzman Scholars. And based on the curiosity synonyms that you just self-described, we have more than essentially half of the group thinking of themselves as inquisitive, having keen intellect, and most importantly, the most popular topic being a knowledge seeker, having an innovative and growth mindset, and being a creative thinker. So you all sound a lot like Schwarzman Scholars. But a funny thing happens during our pursuing our goals, whether it be for a job, grad school, or generally our hopes and dreams. It's like we have some form of learned helplessness, and we don't rely on that curiosity and show a relentless pursuit in identifying and pursuing our goals. That ingenuity, grit, intellect, and ultimately curiosity that we so easily applied to our theses, our research projects, our favorite class. Often these are surprisingly absent when we end up focusing on self. We just don't seem to be able to apply that same rigor, creativity, and resilience to our career prospects. Instead, we seem to be paralyzed with all of the options. We don't have a clear strategy. We don't necessarily commit the time necessary. And we ultimately have a tendency to follow the herd. Instead, I'd like you to really rethink your mindset around this. I'd like you to couple your love of learning with that innate curiosity so that you don't get caught up in the herd, that you view it as more of a jungle gym with respect to your career path than a ladder. You know, a ladder is so limiting. This idea that you can go up or down, get on or off, and you spend most of your time looking at the back end of somebody else. Instead, by thinking of it as a jungle gym, this idea that you can move up, down, across, there might be a dip, that there are so many different ways to get to the top, that lots of people can be at the top, is really, really important, because really it helps you understand that each step in your kind of career pursuits, whatever they may be, is leading somewhere. That you can find meaning in your work and you can take risks without that fear of missing out. And our scholars do just that. Post-program, those first destinations in our cohort are so incredibly diverse. This is about an average for the first 4 years of what those post-program pursuits look like. So by far, the most, about 70% of the class pursues employment. But again, what that employment is, what the industries are, the functions, the geographies, is incredibly diverse every single year. It's what makes my job very exciting in getting to know each and every person and what those goals are and to help them pursue them. Continuing education, about 20% of the class every year is going on to medical school, law school, PhDs, MBAs, all sorts of different professional degrees. Military pursuits, about 5% of the class in any given year. And then these other career pursuits, also about 5%. We've had people go on to run for office, start their own companies, write novels. And I think for me, that diversity is really evident in the way in which our scholars pursue their goals. Their curiosity drives that pursuit. They recognize that the Career Development Office and my team is not a placement service. They know that what they want to do with the rest of their life, they don't have to have that figured out by any means. They just have to be curious about what those options are, because 40% of the jobs available to tomorrow don't even exist today. But we don't want you to be blinded by the choices such that you struggle to pursue anything at all. It's about keeping that jungle gym in mind. But that's easier said than done. And we know that. So the career development team at Schwarzman College works on strengthening your application of curiosity to that job search. Our first program in the year is called Why Are You Here? And we delve deep into figuring out and how to apply your why to any what that you want to pursue. We couple that with accountability career teams, or ACTs. These are small teams of individuals that work together through 4 days of self-assessment programming, or informational interviewing, or interviewing, whereby we use the power of teams to accomplish our goals and learn new skills about ourselves, such that we can better evaluate all the options in front of us. We also use design thinking in the approach for designing your life, which is one of the Stanford D School approaches to thinking about professional pursuits. And we have a whole program around that as well. And interestingly, when we hopefully support your efforts in pursuing those pursuits and thinking differently about how to apply that curiosity, we start to see really great outcomes. We start to see people discovering hidden opportunities, engaging with more people at the college, coming across as interested, not needy, shining in interviews, pitching, and site visits. This is so important when we talk about kind of the authenticity component. When you ask questions that really reflect your interests and not questions just for questions' sake, and you come prepared, it has an incredible effect on that trajectory. And of course, diversifying your efforts, really thinking through that, again, that jungle gym mindset, that there isn't just one great option, but there are probably several, but as you can see from this graphic, that they are tied together. So I hope briefly that I that you get an exhilaration when you pursue your curiosity, and that the curiosity you pursue can have a tremendous impact on that trajectory. And so hopefully I've made kind of a base case for applying the curiosity you've shown in so many other areas of your life to kind of those post-program or professional pursuits that you may have. I'd now like to turn it over to one of our alumni, Miro Plukabam, who's embodied being inquisitive, showing keen intellect, being that knowledge seeker, having that growth mindset, and being a creative thinker. In essence, he's used that curiosity in how he has approached life's endeavors and professional possibilities. Miro, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thanks for having me. Good to see all of you. I just went through the participants list, and it's great to see so much diversity on this Zoom call. When Julia first pitched this topic to me, I got very excited because one of the best things about Schwarzman Scholars is that in your year, you're very unlikely to find someone with the same background, with the same professional interests within your cohort. And so one of the main unifying factors is actually this curiosity that makes the year so incredibly fun. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Rather than giving you a guide for how you can employ curiosity in your own professional career, I just want to give you an example of how I manage to leverage and also manage my curiosity. Curiosity can both be a boon and a curse. And in designing your own professional career, it's important to manage that. So I just want to give you a few examples from my own professional life, and then talk a little bit about how Schwarzman Scholars, how the college can help facilitate you leveraging and managing your curiosity for your professional career. A little bit about myself. I graduated last year, so class of 2019, was raised in Germany and the US, studied politics, philosophy, and economics in the UK, where I graduated in 2017. And currently I'm a product manager at a seed stage AI startup based in Beijing, but currently due to Corona, stuck in Germany on a very much prolonged business trip. So as you can kind of already see from my undergraduate degree, I had always had a very wide range of interests across many different disciplines. In fact, I worked in 8 different domains prior to joining Schwarzman College. And in thinking about how to approach this curiosity, I was always confronted with the fear that people might think I don't have a plan, I'm unable to commit to a certain option, or I'm just bad at everything I do, and hence I always have to switch what it is I focus on, or maybe that just all these experiences that I have been able to gather are irrelevant to the job that I'm applying for. I just want to go ahead and share a few strategies that I used to mitigate those concerns that I had and actually turn them into advantages. Just a quick overview here of some of the things that I'm quite interested in. So you can see they range from kind of finance and management consulting at McKinsey or a VC, to policy and law, but also to more creative pursuits like architecture and men's tailoring. And these are all domains that I've worked in one capacity or another, be that just as a hobby or through internships or full-time jobs. So I'm thinking about how can I try to satisfy this curiosity without setting myself up for professional failure. I think the first thing to bear in mind is that whenever you try something new, commit to it as though it's the very last thing that you will do in your life, as though this will be your career for the remainder of your life. That will allow you to make a measurable impact at the organization or within the field that you're working in, and highlight that regardless of what domain you're working on, you're able to make an impact quickly. So this will make transitioning between very different domains much easier. This point number 2 and 3 that I would suggest is seek out contrast within the same domain, and when pursuing a big change, be very patient. So you don't necessarily have to do something completely different to satisfy your urge for something new. You can also just flip the coin and look at other aspects of an area which you have already worked in. And then when trying to make a big change, look for stepping stones that can help assist you in that. And Schwarzman Scholars might be one of those stepping stones for you that you can use strategically to make a rather big change effectively while still being able to tell a consistent story about why you're doing what you're doing. And then finally, and one that is very dear to my heart, is it's okay to do something just for the fun of it. Julia mentioned in her talk that a lot of people sometimes tend to follow the herd. And so if you're applying for private equity, don't feel pressured to be the 20th lacrosse team captain who's applying to a PE fund. If there's something else that really keeps you up at night and that you enjoy doing, feel free to invest just as much time into that pursuit as the lacrosse team captain is investing into their pursuit. Because at the end of the day, people want to see a person. They don't want to see a brand applying, to a job. So I'll share a little bit more about how doing things just for the fun of it, doing things without always calculating the outcome has been really helpful in my professional career. I'll start with 2 examples for how I've managed to apply those strategies in my own career planning. The first one is looking for contrast within the same domain. I usually get bored relatively quickly when trying out something new. And so I'm always kind of looking for the next hit of excitement. I quite enjoy this fish out of water syndrome where you're trying to cope with a new challenge under a lot of pressure. But I can only recommend that avoid starting something new from scratch just to satisfy that curiosity. You will have a much easier time getting access to high quality experiences if you explore the other side of the coin of something that you've done before first. So this allows you to build on something rather than starting from scratch and adding value from day one. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, one of my very first kind of serious internships was an internship at the Bank of England, where I was working on financial regulation for investment banks and insurance companies. And I did this, I think actually two summers in a row, I worked on this for 3 months. So I'd spent quite a lot of time on it already. And I was growing a little bit tired. I wanted to try something new. And the obvious choice I think would have been maybe to go into finance. So do something rather different. But I tempered that urge and instead went from regulating finance to navigating financial regulation at a commercial law firm. So something that was in the private sector rather than the public sector, something that was on the other side of the competition, so to speak, but still something where, based on my experience, my previous experiences, I was able to add value very quickly and make the most of the experience and also sell myself effectively to them in the interview. I also pointed out that when pursuing or when trying to make a big change, it's often more effective to do this gradually than radically, and that Schwarzman College might be a way for you to try and do this. What exactly do I mean by this? After I had done some work in policy, so with the Bank of England, with the United Nations, with this commercial law firm, I became more and more interested in technology policy, in part through an academic interest in philosophy. But the problem was I had absolutely no experience in tech. I had mainly experience in finance. And so I had to find a way to approach the tech industry gradually via stepping stones. One such stepping stone for you might be Schwarzman College. For me, it was a series of short internships that I was able to leverage into a full-time job at a tech company. So using my experience in finance, I was able to get a job in management consulting. And using the management consulting experience, I was able to slowly edge my way closer towards a more technical role by working in venture capital, and then eventually ended up at a policy and product strategy role at SAP, which is a large German enterprise software company. I had in fact applied to SAP well before I ever applied to McKinsey, but got rejected immediately just out of the door because I didn't have any tech experience. And my pitch for why they should hire me for technology policy simply wasn't as effective. So in thinking about how you can pursue your curiosity, I would encourage you all to think about it very strategically, be very patient about how you want to reach your end goal, and take a long-term view. And the career teams at Schwarzman College, your classmates at Schwarzman College, are a huge asset in helping you think through that process and in helping you plan those steps. And Schwarzman College itself can serve as an intermediary step. So instead of, like me having gone to McKinsey and a venture capital fund, you might be able to use the time at Schwarzman College to do an internship or to write some papers that bring you closer to this change that you want to make in your career regardless of whether or not you're a fresh graduate or someone with 2 to 4 years of work experience already. So what does curiosity at Schwarzman College exactly look like? I think it comes in many, many different shapes and forms. I'll talk through the pictures in just a second. They all have an interesting story behind them. First asset of Schwarzman College is that you can really use the time adjacent, so before and after the program, to take some risks. Many people tried and failed to start their own business, either before or after the program. People did internships, even people who were mid-career just tested the waters and went back to being an intern after having spent 5 years at McKinsey and Company. Or you can try and acquire a new skill that previously you didn't have the time for. And the great thing about Schwarzman College is because the brand is so strong, because it already has such a strong reputation, you can take those failures easily on board without anyone ever asking you about them. So even if you shouldn't succeed in learning that new skill, if the internship turns out to be a failure, no one will ever ask about it because you have, your experience, your time at Schwarzman as a very healthy buffer. Then the second thing that I particularly enjoyed at Schwarzman College, and what all these pictures refer to, is let your fellow scholars help you explore outside of your existing specialization. In my year, there were, I think, 135 people. None of us had the same background, the same set of experiences, and everyone was incredibly keen and supportive to help each other learn and share. So this is something you should definitely take advantage of and look forward to just broaden your horizon, explore options, and learn how you can approach a new industry or a new company rather more strategically. And then finally, you can use Schwarzman as an opportunity to get that one thing that's been itching you out of your system. So maybe you want to use the capstone to write about your favorite hobby. In my year, we had a classmate who wrote, she was a management consultant originally, but she used her Schwarzman College thesis, what we call the capstone, as an opportunity to write about fantasy novels. We had someone else who wrote about pricing in the airline industry when his plan was after Schwarzman to do a degree in public policy. So again, very different. We had people who did internships with a wedding planner, someone else who did an internship as a storyteller for a primary school in Beijing, although he too was a management consultant. So Schwarzman College can present you with the opportunity to do something that you've really been itching to do that can help with your self-actualization. And for me, that was following some more creative pursuits. So I've always been very interested in arts and in crafts. And I was able to use the Schwarzman College network and my classmates to explore that. So I don't know, here you see some pictures of me learning how to cook Chinese food, dumplings, how to carve Chinese seals, how to do some Chinese weaving. I visited a family office that helps its clients invest in whiskeys. So all these kind of random interests that I had, I was able to pursue in an attempt kind of to an effort of self-actualization, shall we say. And I already alluded to this earlier. Don't feel pressured to follow the herd. Don't feel paralyzed by all the options at your disposal. If there's something that you really want to do and you believe in it and you enjoy it, just go for it. And this is something that Schwarzman College provides you with a space to do. But even that if you don't get accepted to Schwarzman College, you should most certainly try and find the time to do. So quick anecdote from my Schwarzman College application process, and in fact, every single interview I've ever had, is that the time I spent after high school working with a bespoke men's tailor for 5 months, that was just something I had always wanted to do, practice a craft with my hands, has served me really well in interviews. It's always been a great icebreaker, something that interview panelists have always asked me about without failure. This is me and General David Petraeus, the former CIA director and now partner at KKR, talking about men's tailoring. It was one of the questions he had asked me during my Schwarzman College interview. And then upon visiting the college during my year, this was us before his the talk that he gave, just talking about men's tailoring casually. So if people realize or recognize that you have interests outside of your professional career that you pursue just as ambitiously as your career, I think it helps make you appear more rounded as a person, while also providing you with a really nice creative outlet. So I'll conclude on that, and I think we're going to open up the room to some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miro, for those incredible remarks, and Julia, for those incredible insights into the support, the incredible support you offer all of our scholars, as you did Miro. And I want to open up, as Miro said, to a time of Q&A. And the way that we'll do that is using our Q&A box. So down the bottom bar of your Zoom webinar screen, you'll see a Q&A box. You can simply type the question in there. We may not have time to get to all the questions, but if we do not, we will certainly follow up with you. So please use that as a way to engage with us, and I will field questions to our amazing panelists today. So a question for you, Miro, coming in is a very good one. With your wide-ranging interests, how did you talk about your goals in the application process? And you can go and unshare your screen, Miro, and we can see you full screen.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing here. Very good question. So I'm assuming this is with regards to the Schwarzman College application process.
Exactly.
By the time I was applying to Schwarzman College, I had already lined up these experiences at McKinsey, the VC, and at SAP. And so I pitched myself as someone who was interested in technology policy. And although at the time I was applying for Schwarzman, I actually had zero experience in technology policy, I already had the opportunities lined up to demonstrate that by the time I would arrive at Schwarzman College, I would be able to make an impact in that field. So that's how I was able to sell those experiences effectively. And as I illustrated earlier, I had this kind of relatively neat progression from experiences in finance to experiences in management consulting to experiences in VC and then to tech. So that made it relatively easy to tell that story, how I moved from one to the other. So, I was in finance, and that sparked an interest in policy. I was interested in policy, and one area in policy that is becoming more and more relevant is technology policy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the most important thing was that I was able to lay out those steps very clearly and demonstrate that I was kind of pursuing my goals in a patient and very strategic manner. So whatever it is you do, I think you'll be able to tell a similar story if you just take the time, slow things down a little bit, and try and fill those gaps with maybe an internship or some self-learning activities, etc.
Well said, well said. We got a question we'd love to hear both of your thoughts on. Could you tell us more about the mentorship program at Schwarzman College?
Oh, yeah.
So I'll start with just the logistics. So the career development team oversees the mentorship program. We have essentially more mentors than we do students. And students are able to select their own mentor from this pool. I think it's worked very, very well. We've come up and refined the process such that people have an opportunity now to really review the biographies of the different mentors, think that through, and then through a randomized process, the order in which you select your mentor is done. Some of our mentors do mentor more than one student. We have a kickoff meetings at the beginning of the year where you not only get one-on-one time with your mentor, but then we move into a process whereby you have the opportunity to talk to all the mentors. We feel it's incredibly important that you have access to the entire pool and can engage across and with your fellow peers, with different individuals. In addition, because you have that list of who all the mentors are, you have the opportunity at any point during the year to write a letter to that mentor, and we'll pass that on to that individual. And the majority of our mentors are so giving of their time that they're more than happy to engage with you. And many of our mentors are willing to bring scholars out into their homes or workplaces, whereby it's not uncommon that one of your peers will invite 3 or 4 scholars to join them on one of those endeavors. But Miro, maybe you can give a specific example of some of the things you encountered during your year.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned mentors inviting people into their homes. I actually had Thanksgiving dinner with Rich Bishop in Beijing with his wife and some people from his company in November. He wasn't even my mentor. He was just someone who I had met at one of these mentor mixers and really connected with. So I think the first thing to say is that mentors, they're not really part of the Schwarzman College network. They're part of the community. They come to the college relatively regularly just to, I can't find a better word than hang out. That's really it. They just come to hang out and have interesting conversations with you. So it's not like an awkward, stilted networking session that you might know from college or from I don't know, a New York bar. It's much more organic than that. So that makes it incredibly fun and enjoyable, and a very pressure-free environment where you can go in it without an agenda and just meet very interesting people. And so for me personally, that hasn't resulted in any dramatic professional benefits. I've made great friends in Beijing as a result. Like I said, Rich and I had celebrated Thanksgiving together. But for other people, it's turned into career opportunities. Other people have explored new hobbies, learned about China in many different facets. So I think for me at least, next to my Chinese classmates, the mentors were one of the biggest assets of the program, and just very enjoyable to engage with.
And I think the pool of mentors overall, our goal is to reflect the diversity and curiosity of the class, right? So we have mentors from the National Basketball Association, from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, to the Gates Foundation. So all different kinds of paths. And I think that's really important. And I've seen a lot of questions kind of come in about, some of the practical applications of that diversity. And I really want to hone in on that. So not only do we have diversity amongst every cohort, their interests really change from year to year. So in one year, we have 4% pursuing technology, and another year, 16%. One year, 27% pursued finance. The next year, it was 9%. So we really craft opportunities within the class to kind of shape based on, again, the various interests. But again, when you ask questions about, well, what are the salary statistics? Well, because of the geographic diversity of any incoming class and the types of choices people are making, one of our graduates went to the Thai-Myanmar border doing landmine alleviation. The salary for that kind of opportunity compared to another individual who went to Alibaba's Global Leadership Academy is radically different. And so there's a much more contextual kind of approach to thinking about these paths. And if you're looking at this as an opportunity to get a certain salary or to make sure you can do a certain thing, this is probably not necessarily the right program for you to be thinking about. You need to be thinking about the long-term trajectory of how this program influences your approach to leading in the world of tomorrow. And I think that's also true with respect to the recruitment process. I mentioned that the curiosity of our scholars drives how they approach their professional pursuits. Our on-campus experience does not replicate your undergraduate recruiting process, and often not the process that you would see at other graduate schools. It's really because we have a diversity of age ranges, right? By about 8 to 10 years, our scholars range in age from 18 to 28. Our scholars, again, geographically diverse. Their interests are so diverse that I think we would never satisfy anybody if we tried to kind of bring everyone across all those pursuits. What I would say that we excel at, remember how I mentioned on one of those slides, are you engaging with everyone who walks through that door? I mean, Miro mentioned this idea of our mentors being a part of the community. We create a community whereby everyone who walks through that door of Schwarzman College, who they are, their second and third layers of their network, you're developing relationships with those individuals that, again, help you satisfy that curiosity. And I think if you rely on the career office to kind of be that placement agency for you, you're kind of missing the whole point of how you can let that curiosity drive and go for what it is you really want deep down. I don't know, Miro, if you want to comment on some of those experiences of what you saw at the college and who was...
Yeah, I'd love to. So first off, age range. One of the biggest benefits of the college is the great diversity of ages. I mean that, 22-year-old grad can learn about a specific industry from a 28-year-old who's been working in it for 6 years. And that likewise, a 28-year-old can learn about AI from a 22-year-old grad is just fantastic and really beneficial to everyone. And what I found, at least during my year, was that social groups don't form around age at all or interests at all. They form much more organically and I would say like serendipitously, usually around just travel or certain activities that are going on campus. So I think regardless of your age or background, it's very easy to find a group of people that you want to spend time with at Schwarzman. In fact, it'll likely be all 135 Schwarzman scholars that you'll want to do that with. about salary and kind of exit opportunities, of course, if you want to use Schwarzman College to get a salary bump, that is one way to use the program, but it's not the only way to use the program. It's not, I would say, in contrast to a very formal business school type education, you are much more open and flexible in the options that you want to pursue after Schwarzman College. And there's much more precedent after Schwarzman College as well to pursue those kind of great variety of interests, regardless of, salary, nonprofit, for-profit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it varies widely from year to year. Yeah. Can I pick out a question, Wyatt?
Yeah, that'd be great. I was going to jump into Annie's question. That was a great one coming in. Is it more advantageous to apply with a story of using Schwarzman to pivot or change, or a story of furthering existing career interests? And I'd love to hear your perspective on that. And I'll also answer it from the admissions perspective as well.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly the one that I wanted to reply to as well, based on some of the comments that Julia had been making, is that, at least from my perspective, is we had people who did both in our year. And that's, again, what makes it so interesting. Some people are looking for a completely new opportunity via Schwarzman, and they'll find mentors, they'll find classmates, they'll find academics who can help support them in that. While others are looking to just, dig even deeper on a topic they've been pursuing all their life, whether that's academically or professionally, and they'll find people to do exactly that. So one of my very good friends knew from the start that he was going to pursue a PhD in artificial intelligence after Schwarzman. And so, you might think, why should he take the time out of his academic career to study Chinese policy? Yeah, well, because China has a huge AI industry and is a big player in the policy space. And you can't really work on AI without understanding China, both from a policy and also from an industry perspective. And so there are opportunities created for both for those who want to pivot radically and those who want to continue to do what it is that they're doing. I think the one thing that I should kind of warn people of is that the college isn't going to serve you this on a silver platter. It's kind of a framework, an environment that you can, if you have the initiative, if you want to take the initiative, pursue those things in, and there are assets at your disposal to help you with that. But whether or not they are made available to you, or whether or not you can kind of find them, all depends on how much work and effort you're willing to put in. So Julia or Wyatt are not going to, serve you up your radically different job or help you publish that one paper that you've been meaning to publish all your life. It's something you're going to have to do on your own. But if you pursue it, there will be people there to support you. Yeah.
I think the thing I think about with respect to the application itself and what your goals are, write the story that is true and that only you can tell. And I think if you keep that in mind, again, like I said, I don't think we have any kind of quotas around who's going into what space. I mean, or again, because the world is going to change so radically in the next 100 years, we want, again, this legacy to be that people pursue what they're passionate about, no matter what the sector, no matter what the geography, because again, I think the world is going to be dependent on having great leaders across all of them. So again, write the story that only you can tell. I know Wyatt, you probably also want to chime in there with anything on the admissions front.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Julia. Julia is one of our panel chairs every year across our interviews. So she's just as much of an admissions expert as I am, and I appreciate those insights from you both. I think from the admissions perspective, this is very much in line with what Julia just said, and in terms of Steve's vision for this program is really to create a global network of leaders from around the world and across sectors, recognizing that if we're going to have a global network that's going to advance the mission of this program to build bridges of understanding and increase mutual understanding between China and the rest of the world, we need the diversity of leaders across sectors to be able to do that. So in your application, I encourage you to think about it as this idea of demonstrative leadership. How can you show the person reading your application? How can you show the people you may be interviewing with who are also accomplished leaders in the world, the demonstrative leadership in your life? So how have you been successful at gathering a group of people around an idea that you're passionate about? How have you bridged the gap between perspectives? How have you worked with people who disagree with you or may have different values from you? And how have you move that group of people forward to get something done on an issue of significance and impact. That could be an impact at your school or university level, in your community, in your country, in the world. The scale can be anything, and the sector and the field can be anything, but it really comes down to that idea of demonstrated leadership. And this program really is designed to prepare you, to really leverage that as you step into your career as a leader in the future as well.
I think one of the things I'd love to add to about the program that's really interesting from a career development perspective is how many people across all of those different professional pursuits access and use the career development resources and teams. So again, whether it's mentoring or programming, 50% of the individuals in my current self-assessment program, that accountability career team, 50% already have their post-program pursuits solidified. One of them is going into the military. These are people who are just, again, thinking about how to think about themselves and those kind of, again, interests. And I think that's really telling about the kind of people the program attracts and the way in which, as Miro's pointed out, they take advantage of the resources and tools, and that they really go for that. So whether, again, your pursuit is across any endeavor, whether it's sports, media, the arts, or something more kind of in the business landscape, it doesn't matter. It's all about your commitment to those things and your ability to take advantage of everything that the college provides.
Yeah, well said. Miro, a couple questions have come in about China, right? And obviously the core to the mission of this program, and something that has had an impact on all three of our lives in such a significant way. I studied abroad in China in college and have worked in China with our family at the college. And Miro, would love to hear from you when you think about both your time coming to the program, what was your connection before coming, and then how has
excellent question.
Connection with China impacted your career development. Experience is not required in any way for the admissions process. So Miro is one of 100 for the program, many who have not. So love to hear your background with that, Miro.
Yeah, so prior to the college, I had zero China experience. I hadn't studied Chinese language. I think I had China appeared in one class that I had during 3 years of undergrad. I think what's important is that you're able to make the case for why you are interested in China now and how that relates to your professional or academic interests. In my case, it was very clearly an interest in technology policy. As I alluded to when talking about AI, can't escape China in that realm, both from a technical industry perspective and from a policy perspective. So the case for China for me was very clear. And I think within about 1 month, so I wanted to use it. My hope was that by the end of the year, I'd have at least a fundamental understanding of how China operates in that space. But I also wanted to use the year as a low opportunity cost way to test if developing some level of expertise with regards to China would be, a good fit for me. I think within 1 month, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. So then I set my mind on think about, okay, how can I stay in China? How can I maximize my learning about China? Because if you do want to develop a China expertise, clearly 1 year of studying China in whatever capacity is simply not enough. So that's where the Schwarzman Scholars then really served as that stepping stone that I described earlier. I think as a foreigner, as an outsider who has no relationship with China whatsoever, getting a job in China can be incredibly challenging. Things are very network driven. Not getting a job, getting a good job, a job that you enjoy, that really can take your career to the next level, requires a lot of on the ground interaction with people and learning about the space. And Schwarzman Scholars gives you the time to do that, gives you the assets to do that. And so that's how I managed to kind of take my career to the next level within China. And right now my plan is I'm working with this startup, probably going to have one more job change over the next 2 or 3 years, and then reconsider whether or not I've learned what I came in wanting to learn about China, and then kind of think about how to maybe change my geographic focus a little bit. Yeah. And so that's how I highlighted it in my that's exactly how I highlighted it in my application. I was very honest. This might just be a 1-year experience for me, and this is how I would use it in that case. But provided that I think I can maximize on opportunities, I might stay longer. And if that were to happen, this is how I would use that opportunity. So I think it's important to just be honest about what you want to get out of the program. And it's okay to highlight that there's some uncertainty within that, as long as you can make it clear that you've thought strategically about either option. Yeah.
I think from a numbers perspective, about 10% of foreign nationals stay in China post-program. If you count the people who stay for further language study, that can almost bump it up by a couple additional percentage points. But again, we've had people go to places in every kind of sector, from Tesla to Canadian Solar to Johnson & Johnson to ByteDance to Alibaba to, gosh, there's so many. Those are just the ones coming to mind right now. But again, you can see in so many different sectors, and not, Miro in a startup environment in AI. I mean, we have different people pursuing different things, and there was no one magic kind of thing about what they were pursuing. It was just that they were incredibly dedicated to the pursuit of that ideal. So I see different language capabilities of the people who stayed. I see people who had years of Chinese language, Mandarin language study. And I also see people who, like Miro, started out kind of in level 1. Did you invest further? Did you find, Miro, that language acquisition was an important part of your kind of pursuit and staying in China?
I didn't find it, it's not what helped me get my current job, but it's what helped me enjoy my time in China. I think one is learning the language so that you can enjoy life in China and connect with Chinese people. And that's relatively easy to achieve. I think you can achieve that within a year. And then the second level is the level of Chinese that you would need to engage professionally, which requires definitely more than a year of study, in my opinion. So yes, you're able to get a great job without having achieved that level of Chinese. It's not a necessary requirement, but I still have 4 to 6 hours of Chinese class one-on-one every week. And my ambition is that in my next job, I'll be using Chinese on a day-to-day basis. But that varies widely. I mean, I know people from my year who've been in China now for 2 years who don't really speak a word of Chinese, and they still somehow get by. It's maybe not the way you should play it, but it's also a possibility. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And Julie, this is a great question coming in from a student asking, if I'm a partner and investor in a business, do I have to resign from this position to become a Schwarzman Scholar?
So I think we do have a number of people who are kind of pursuing professional pursuits alongside of their scholar experience. This could be, as Miro mentioned, starting your company. We've had many individuals start a company or a nonprofit organization. We've equally had individuals who own their own company or who are at a partner investor level who are kind of still co-managing some of those responsibilities. I think the bigger and more important thing to be thinking about is, as Miro and I have kind of talked about, taking advantage of all that the program has to offer means an incredible amount of time that you're going to want to dedicate to being present for that experience. So if you have to spend a significant amount of your time kind of in your room managing a business, you might be cutting yourself off from some of the greatest benefits of the program. So I don't think there's any stipulation as to whether you can or cannot be working. I mean, equally, there were people, as Miro mentioned, doing internships and traveling for, 20 to 30 hours a week during one of the modules. But again, I think it's part of the broader, how will you still be able to effectively engage if you are committed to other endeavors outside of the college? We do want you to be a member of the community and again, taking advantage with, again, the peers, the professionals, and all that the program has to offer. I don't know, Miro, do you have any other thoughts?
I just did a quick count. I think in my year, there were 8 people who were involved with businesses in a really meaningful way, in a way that they had to engage with it every day. And about, I'd say 2/3 of them managed that really well and were able to engage with the program the way they had hoped. And the remaining 1/3 maybe were a little bit disappointed that they weren't able to find the time to do that. So yeah, just think about it carefully. Make sure you have processes in place before you join the college, that you can take time out to engage with the people at the college. And then it should be very manageable. Just think about also how you want to then re-enter the company that you're supporting remotely, presumably remotely, during your time at the college, because that too can be a challenge. So just make sure you have those kind of those structures in place. It'll make your life worry-free.
Absolutely. And one final question as we wrap up here, Mira, as you think about your career, we're at a stage this year as we graduate, the 4th cohort of Schwarzman Scholars will hit the 500 mark in our alumni network. So our network is growing around the world. And as you think about your career moving forward, how do you see the Schwarzman Scholars alumni network, influencing and being a part of your career moving forward?
Yeah. So I know this is centered on career advice, but first of all, they're a huge part of my friendship group. Particularly in Beijing, we have a very, very active alumni community, which is, more balanced than any other geographic area, just because of the presence of Chinese scholars still in Beijing and international scholars. We meet probably bi-weekly, I'd say, at people's houses, at just random events that are organized either by the college or by the alumni organization. So that has just been an incredible amount of fun. And then every day on our WeChat groups or our alumni platform, we see people helping each other, trying to support each other in their career. So probably not a day goes by that I don't see someone offering a really interesting job opportunity, where I myself am tempted to just reach out and learn more about that. There are scholars who work together on businesses, scholars who, work on another scholar's team who's 2 or 3 years their senior. So many stories like that. And yeah, as you pointed out, the opportunities that the network creates are just growing exponentially right now. So it's a really good time to join, because not only are you able to take advantage of the exponential growth in opportunities, but you're also able to, give back, which I think is a lot of fun as well. Yeah. So right now, one of the things we've done is that the current, cohort is in a bit of a tricky situation due to Corona, is just offering up our apartments in different locations of the world up to them, so they can, be in a new city, kind of try and take advantage of career opportunities in those places, job hunt on the cheap, etc. Share resources on which companies we know are hiring during these times. We have a lot of virtual alumni gatherings just for people to hang out, the way we would at the Schwarzman College pub. So it's been a really supportive community during this time of isolation as well.
Well said, well said. Julia, any final remarks on your side as we start to wrap up here?
Just to say that we encourage all of you to think about how curiosity plays out, obviously in your day-to-day life, but as you think about how the Schwarzman Scholars Program could be a part of that larger story that only you can tell, and we hope you take great consideration in what this opportunity could hold. And I look forward to potentially meeting you this fall.
Well said. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Mira, so much for spending the time with us this morning. We had over 100 participants on the call, so we really appreciate each of you joining us. And as we wrap up, just a quick reminder that if you are a U.S. global applicant, our application for the 2021 to 2022 cohort will open on Wednesday of this week, so tomorrow. That'll be for the 6th cohort of Schwarzman Scholars to begin your study at the college in August of 2021. We are so looking forward to receiving your applications, and we would love to hear your story, to hear your case for curiosity as you share your story with us on the admissions team. And just a reminder, if you are a citizen of Chinese mainland, Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan, our application is currently open right now for the 6th cohort, and it will close on May 20th. Interviews will take place in June. So 2 identical processes with different timelines. So just you can check out our admissions website to see more details about both of those timelines, but we just wanted to give you reminders on both of those important dates coming up. So with that, we'll wrap up. Thank you again so much for joining us. We look forward to keeping in touch. And if you have any questions at any time, you can feel free to reach out to us at admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org. And please stay tuned to our social media handles and our website to look forward to additional webinars coming up. We'll host some more webinars like this with Julia related to the incredible career development opportunities at the college and the incredible stories, just like Miro's, of our alumni and current scholars coming up in the months of May, June, July, August, and September as we head towards the U.S. Global Application deadline. Thanks again for joining, and take care.
Thank you.